The camera sweeps through a shadowy studio apartment, shattered vases and faded sketches littering the space, a solitary chai cup on the windowsill, and rain murmuring against the pane. My voice, soft and unsteady, cuts through the hush. I thought he'd slipped away from my world forever, until that wild night when I swung open the door and found him there, drenched and vulnerable, in my favorite oversized tee, and nothing more. I draw a shaky breath. You figure affection just fizzles out. Sometimes it flares back up right when you've armored your heart against it. Delicate cello notes rise as the scene melts into the heart of the story. I wasn't the type to bare my soul easily. At 31, I was a freelance illustrator in Bangalore, my routine a blend of herbal tea, deadlines, and quiet isolation. It hadn't always felt this empty, not before him. 2.5 years ago, my days overflowed with warmth, shared visions, and those lighthearted squabbles that dissolved into tender moments. His name was Aryan. He was my perfect counterpoint, adventurous, passionate, full of life. He could spin a foggy morning into a spontaneous road trip and a botched recipe into an epic laugh. We met at a local cafe when he clumsily bumped my table, sending my sketchbook flying. I was irritated. He flashed a sheepish grin. I huffed. He bought me a replacement coffee with an apologetic note. That easy charm became our rhythm, and soon love wove its way in. But life doesn't follow a scripted romance. Aryan's sister was diagnosed with a rare condition, bringing endless hospital visits, mounting deaths, and overwhelming stress. In the midst of it all, he pulled away without explanation. Just a single message. "Don't follow me, Ria. I can't burden you with this storm." I hunted for clues. 5 exhausting months before the hurt dulled into resignation, and resignation into a hollow normalcy. 2.5 years later, I still lingered in the same cozy space we'd once filled with dreams. Each dawn, I'd eye his favorite spot on the balcony, left bare. Each dusk, I'd doodle in solitude, the ghost of his energy haunting the air. Then, on a fierce, lightning-laced evening, everything shifted. The intercom buzzed at 2 a.m. Bleary-eyed, I answered. There he was, rain-slick and trembling, eyes puffy from unspoken pain, wrapped in my old tea, the one he'd borrow on sleepless nights for comfort. We stood frozen, the tempest outside paling against the whirlwind in our gazes. "Hi," he whispered, his words fracturing like glass. I didn't have anywhere else to run to. My fingers trembled as I let him in. He padded inside barefoot, leaving wet footprints on the rug. The faint citrus whiff of his cologne rushed back like a flood of recollections. When he turned to me, I saw the welts on his neck, raw, telling marks. "What did this to you?" I asked quietly. "Not yet," he begged. "Please, just not yet." He shattered then, tears streaming as I held him. We stayed like that for hours, until morning light filtered through. For the first time in forever, my solitude felt pierced by hope. But I knew his reappearance hid deeper wounds. Daybreak exposed more than faded echoes. As Aryan napped on the daybed, cocooned in my quilt, I lingered nearby, unraveling the mystery in my mind. When he awoke, he looked so fragile, a far cry from the vibrant man I'd cherished. "Where have you been all this time?" I asked tenderly. "Escaping," he said, his tone unsteady, "from a regret that swallowed me whole." The story tumbled out. After his sister's illness hit, expenses soared. A woman named Lena, a distant relative with influence, offered aid, but at a steep price. She demanded control, intimacy he didn't want. When he pushed back, she tarnished his name, blocked his gigs, eroded his security. "I stuck it out briefly for my family's sake," he admitted. "But when she crossed that line last night with violence, I bolted, and my feet led me here." My heart clenched with rage, grief, and a burning need to shield him. "You should have come to me sooner," I said, my voice quivering. "I assumed you'd built a new life without me. Without you, you're the life I couldn't erase." His eyes brimmed anew. He sought refuge, if only briefly, but danger loomed. Lena began bombarding his phone, issuing veiled warnings, even circling the neighborhood. I pushed for involving the cops, but Aryan wavered, gripped by fear. People like her, they don't back down, he murmured. That night, I made my stand. Come morning, I faced Lena at her upscale firm, poised, resolute, no longer the woman who dodged tough choices. No drama, no accusations. I documented her harassments, her emails, her lurking presence, and took it all to the station. The process was arduous, fraught with hurdles, but justice, like true connection, calls for grit. 3 weeks on, Lena was detained, her hold broken. Aryan went back to support his sister, trying once more to vanish from my orbit. But I refused to let him fade. You don't need my tea to claim this space, I told him softly, weaving our fingers together. Just show up as you and let's rebuild. A true smile broke through his weariness, the first in ages. You're certain? More than I've ever been. The narrative loops back to that familiar studio, the same rain-kissed window, the same soothing drizzle. Now, 2 chai cups steam side by side. My voice, warm and reflective, wraps it up. He arrived in my tea that night, and nothing else. But it wasn't the tea that truly mattered. It was the strength he found to return, and the grace I offered to welcome him home.